Time for round one. We won the die roll and are going to play first. This is a hand that's not overly fast, but I think we're going to keep it. It's kind of risky to mulligan in this format. If you don't have both colors of mana, then you're already pretty screwed, so happily keeping that. I'm probably going to run out this specialist on turn 2, even though it would evolve the Flux Mage. We can still do that with the Denizen, and after that it would take some time to actually get the Flux Mage going. If we see that our opponent might be on a very defensive plan, then we could actually change that. Now let's see, if we drop the specialist now, it's most likely not going to do much, but it's also a creature that might be our main attacking force, and we can use Pit Fight to pump it at instant speed maybe. So the question is, what do we lose if we go for turn 3 Flux Mage, turn 4 Specialist? Yeah, I don't think we lose all that much. We probably lose out on a bit of damage, but we are guaranteed to hit our 4th mana on turn 4, which makes it rather safe to play it that way. And what I like about it is that we can drop the Specialist and then either give it the counter from the Flux Mage or play Pit Fight in the same turn, which would be our second spell. So we basically have an immediate 3/3 creature to Pit Fight with. Interestingly enough, our opponent is on Izzet right now, which probably means that he has some green spells in there as well, just to take advantage of the Simic and Gruul cards, but we'll see. Simic Manipulator. I think we might want to get rid of that as soon as possible. So yeah, if we drop a low powered creature, then it's immediately going to take over. And the question is if we can risk him having 2 creatures to get the Manipulator up to 2 power, because I really don't want to lose one of my creatures at this stage. I think here we probably should just use our Pit Fight as soon as possible, just to be on the safe side. Which does mean that we run out this Specialist, and then we get a counter. Now what we could do is wait for him to do something, but yeah, I'm just not going to risk anything. What we need to be aware of is that we have only one forest, so we most likely won't be able to drop multiple spells in the same turn. However, if we draw a land, it's somewhat likely to be a forest, so I'm not too bothered about that. We do have the Denizen to play first and get some more counters that way. It actually seems like our opponent is on blue-red, whatever that means. So we actually drew the second forest, but I don't think we want to drop these 2 spells now. There's also a problem with the Flux Mage. We want to put a counter on the Specialist, but we also want to get the Denizen into play. So I think we are going to not use the Flux Mage in the most optimal way when it comes to counters, simply because not dropping the Denizen would also mean missing out on some of the counters. So if that didn't make sense now, activating the Flux Mage is profitable because then you continue to evolve. So had I put the counter on the Incursion Specialist, then it would have gotten the evolve counter from the Denizen, but I didn't have the spare mana, so I'm going to do that now. Metropolis Sprite. Now that's not good to pump the Flux Mage, but that's not really a problem here. So I think we just start with getting some value out of the Flux Mage, this seems to be the time to do that. And now what we could do is play around Arrows of Justice, but he's clearly drawn the Gruul Guildgate and didn't have anything to deal with our creatures last turn, so I don't think that's necessary. Given that our Specialist is going to be unblockable once we play 2 spells, I think we want to diversify the amount of counters a little bit. And we already have our opponent down to 10. He's now going to be able to cast his Gruul or Simic spells, whatever it is. We did pass the Aetherize in the draft, so if he passes again, then we should probably play around that. Oh, that's a big swine right there. So let's see, if we pump the Denizen twice, he's forced to double block it, and the Incursion Specialist is a little bit too weak to attack into the swine if we only play a single spell here. What we could do is play 2 spells, but I feel like attacking with the Denizen is probably worth it. We have to think that through. So if we activate the Flux Mage, we're only dropping one other creature, which could be the Sprite, but then we don't get the trigger from the Denizen, so that doesn't really work. Now my problem is that if we put 2 counters on the Denizen, he just double blocks it with both of his creatures, and we still only get the swine out of the deal. So that doesn't seem to be a very good use of our resources, and that could mean that it's best to attack with multiple creatures here. If we make sure that the Denizen has 4 power, he doesn't have a good block for it. He basically has to put the Sprite or the swine in front of it, and that means that we can attack with all creatures, because if the swine kills one of our other creatures, then he either chump blocks, which nullifies the advantage, or he has to take a lot of damage. So I think as long as we play 2 spells here, with one of them pumping the Denizen, we should be in very good shape. Maybe forcing him to block with the Sprite by being aggressive, and then having the flyer of our own. I like that. I like that best. On the other hand, I'm going to have to think about playing the flyer simply because it costs less mana. So keeping the Sprite in hand is probably more likely to trigger the Specialist again. Yeah, let's go for the Denizen then. Now his Sprite could just block the Disciple and trade there, and then the swine has to block the Denizen. He still takes 6, goes down to 4. I think that's actually a pretty powerful attack. And if he decides to block the Flux Mage with his swine, then he just takes so much damage that he goes down to 2, and I don't think he can afford that with so many 2-power creatures on my side of the board. And he's taking both of the trades, going down to 4, with us having a pretty good board position. And that's it. That was rather easy because he wasn't able to cast any spells after the first one. We are going to be on the draw again, so 16 lands should be okay. Not too sure on the bioshift still, but I like to have some combo tricks, and I don't like to have the clunky cards here. We don't know what he's running. Basically haven't seen enough to really tell. I don't think that Hydroform is what we want to what we want to do against him, and yeah, I don't think we have enough information to really change anything about our deck. And yeah, he's choosing to play first. We have a great hand again, missing a 2-drop, but boy, these 3 and 4 drops are amazing. So not going to mulligan. Also, even distribution of mana, once again, very, very critical. Yeah, Miming Slime, a card I said I don't like too much. But with the Drake Ring Krasis and Slaughterhorn, we might actually get a 6/6 out of the deal, which would be pretty sweet. So it looks like our opponent is on Simic this time. It's possible that the red is a splash, but he only showed, I think he showed 2 or 3 mountains, so yeah, it looks like his mana base is a little wild. And we should actually be able to take this pretty slowly. I don't even see a reason to go for the huge Miming Slime if he doesn't present a blocker. So just dropping my creatures one by one should be very good. He has a reasonable start, but nothing that we can't beat, even being on the draw. We're also missing a second green, so yeah, that's a good thing to draw here. So now we actually have to decide, but I don't think throwing away a Slaughterhorn just to get a large Miming Slime is what we want to be doing. So I'm going to attack and play our own Denizen, which likely isn't going to be able to block this turn, but I feel like we are very ahead in the race, especially given the contents of our hand. So even if he has a green creature here, pumping his Denizen, we still have all the tools we need. It's also possible that he has a way to Blood Rush, so blocking with the Denizen might be a bad idea anyway. Let's see if he attacks. No, he doesn't. Yeah, we can take the damage from the Slaughterhorn. No reason to try for a trade here. And that's a 3/3 flyer, which does turn into a 4/4. So that's actually kind of unfortunate, because putting the Slaughterhorn on the Krasis makes it, well, leads to the Krasis having only 3 toughness, so blocking, getting past that Nimbus Swimmer with the Krasis is almost impossible. What we could do here is play the Greenside Watcher, pumping the Krasis, and then just attack with a 4/2 Trample, which forces him to decide whether to trade immediately or wait. If we could drop 2 green creatures and have Slaughterhorn available, we could even go for the full blowout, but I think that's not really realistic. So okay, sorry about that, my phone went off. So after all this deliberation, I think that we just should drop the Greenside Watcher, make the Krasis, turn the Krasis into a 4/2, and then attack with Krasis and Denizen, because he doesn't have good blocks for either of them, because we have Burst of Strength and Slaughterhorn. And if he declines the block, we can always Miming Slime to get a 4/4, and I think that should be a pretty good deal. We could also Miming Slime first, but yeah, I don't like that too much. if we Miming Slam now, then we can make the Denizen a 3/4, but we couldn't attack into the Swimmer with the Slime, so... He could theoretically double block the Denizen, but I don't think that's very likely. And I'll just have to pay the price if he does that. Okay, that's an interesting block, to say the least. I think that Burst of Strength is going to be most valuable now, giving us a new blocker for the Slaughterhorn, and we are definitely not dying from his Nimbus Swimmer. Don't really understand why he did that. With the 4/4 Flyer, it's not unreasonable to double block the 3/4 Denizen, the 2/3 Denizen. Sorry. It looks like he's trying to raise, which is fine by me. If he had two Zortar Swines here, then we would have been dead. So maybe he's onto something. Now we do have to keep in mind that we passed the Aetherise, which we might want to play around. So the question is, how do we do that in the most efficient way? I think that keeping back the Crasis is a good idea. We can always use it defensively to block the Swimmer, so that should be pretty good. Now, I think we can actually risk having all of our green creatures bounced, because we can just drop the Denizen and the Greenside Watcher again, and then we have the ability to put another counter on another creature the following turn. That way, we also know that if he has the Aetherise, he has to play it now. He can't really afford not to do so. And that just resolves. That's very interesting. I wasn't really expecting that. So I think keeping the Slaughterhorn around just to have a lethal attack is what we want to be doing. Going to play the Miming Slime. Let's see if that resolves. He could have Mystic Genesis in theory. Yeah, okay, I don't have much respect for that card, to be honest. I think it's almost unplayable. It wouldn't have countered the Slaughterhorn activation, and if you get a 3/3 out of the deal, it's already pretty good. Usually you won't get such an expensive card. So the question remains, how are we going to play this? I think that we are forced to block the Ooze, which means that playing our Slaughterhorn is probably a good idea. And that's just because of Blood Rush. I don't want to lose to a Zortar Swine or something that gives +3/+3. So our Denizen can probably use the counter in the best way, allowing it to attack past the Swimmer. If the Swimmer decides to stay on defense, that is. Okay, so if there's a game 3, then we have to keep Mystic Genesis in mind, making it even more difficult for him to use it meaningfully. It's kind of a questionable thing. If your opponent is sitting there with 2 forests, 2 islands, and 2 mountains, if you actually want to play around cards, a rare counterspell with an upside, and I tend not to do so, because, well, it could be anything. He could be sitting there with Pit Fight or whatever. Now, it's possible that we are losing here. He's attacking, so he might have a way to deal extra damage. We do have 2 counters on the Denizen, so Bioshift could just be used to go for the kill here. And I'm kind of afraid that he's going to kill us next turn. The way he's playing makes me scared that that's going to happen. So I'm putting him on some Blood Rush creature, which means that I should be safe to a Bioshift here. If that fails, I'm dead. But if I let this resolve, he goes to 2, and then he kills me with the swimmer and anything basically. I think it's better to go for it now. So let's try to remove the counters from the Denizen and put them on the Spire Tracer. If he has another removal spell here, that's of course a pretty awkward play. But sometimes you just have to go for the throat. And he does have the kill. That's actually interesting. Yeah, okay, he has conceded. I was going to type something because that was exactly what I was describing. The way he played with his swimmer made me think that he was able to kill me next turn, so I just had to go for it, which was kind of lucky that we drew the bioshift there, but that's how it goes. And we would have still had a third game. So beat the Gruul Simic deck and moving on to the semifinals.